Welcome to another episode of the Office 365 Productivity Tips, the April Affray.
Affray is a new word for me.
Yeah, I was trying to be fancy.
Well, I don't know if you were fancy. You may have been obscure, but yeah, I'll go with fancy. Let's work with that.
I'm not often called obscure. I think the word is obtuse that you're looking for.
Or oblivious, if we're going with O words and alliteration here.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, October Oblivion. There we go for the fall.
There we go. We have that one set and running now.
Well, we're going to run through. We're switching things up a little bit this month with the pace of things. We've actually, for those that have participated or watched these previously, we are still going to allow people to vote on each of the different tips and per round, but we're going to be actually doing this separately in a survey, and I've got the link to that within here, so you can, while we're presenting or directly following this, you can go back and take a look as you're watching the video. Definitely go over and vote for your favorite tips for each round. But Tom, let's start with introductions.
Okay.
And my name is Buckley. I'm the founder and CEO of CollabTalk. It's a technical marketing services and independent research firm. I'm based out of Lehi, Utah. It's just south of Salt Lake City. I am a 7-time Microsoft MVP and Microsoft RD, a regional director. And I've just been passionate about end user productivity, team productivity for many, many, many years, and partnered up with Tom. And also this video is hosted out on our YouTube channel. Please go in and subscribe and hit that bell. That would be great.
Yes.
And Tom.
And I am Tom Duff. I work for Cambia Health Solutions, which is based in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, even though I live in Minneapolis, work remote. And much like Christian, I became really interested in user tips that we would share started kind of like more SharePoint, but then it evolved into the entire Office 365 line, and did that internally, and then finally decided that, hey, it'd be kind of cool to also make these external, and we ended up starting to post them on 1minuteofficemagic.com. So you can go out there, and I try to post every like twice a week, but we're undergoing migration stuff right now. I've just been working a lot of long hours, and there hasn't been a post out there for a couple of weeks, but you can go to 1minuteofficemagic.com and find a lot of the prior tips that I have done.
I highly recommend people go take a look. I'm also in the process over on my blog on buckleyplanet.com to provide a searchable database of all of these episodes. I believe this is our 12th or 13th episode.
It's getting up there.
Yeah, and so with each of those, we share 10 tips each time, and I want to make all of those things searchable so that you can go and utilizing Power BI, that you can actually filter by product and find those tips and get links to the blog post, whether it's on 1minuteofficemagic.com or on Buckley Planet, or if we've sourced these tips from other MVPs and experts that are out there that we come across. We always like to, Tom and I both, give full credit to the people who volunteer this information or maybe are unaware that we're giving them praise for sharing the tip. But we care about surfacing great information, not so much about, hey, we had to discover these things within
doesn't have to be invented here, that's for sure.
No, yeah. Well, so here's the rules of engagement. So the way that we do this is we've got the boxing theme running, is that we have 5 rounds where each of us share a tip. Now, Tom and I have not seen what the other person is presenting. And I even had the urge yesterday, Tom, of reaching out and being like, hey, Tom, send me the slides. So we have one unified deck and we don't have to do the back and forth of sharing of screens. But then that takes out some of the fun.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
So we take turns. We go back and forth. So I'll kick things off as I've got the deck and got control of things. And then Tom will go first in the second round. I'll take control of the third round. It's important here that there are no duplicates. So we think that, Tom, you maybe once, I've done it twice. And this is another reason to catalog and keep that database. is that I've repeated aspects of something I'd already shared before, and so I got 0 points for that round.
I wondered.
But I went in and amended the slides to add something unique. So I gave away freebies of like, here's another tip but I took no points for that, because we want to make sure that there are no duplicates. So that every time you participate, every time you go take a look at one of the blog posts or videos, then there's 10 new tips that you can hopefully incorporate into your own desktop or work with your team.
You know, it almost sounds like you're going for a little bit of a sympathy vote on today's stuff.
I'm always looking for that edge, Tom. Come on. Yeah.
I buy my votes, so I really don't care. Yeah, it works.
So part of it is, so we say the audience votes after each round, and I think with this new model, because you'll see the video and the survey will be out there in real time. Part of the reason is when we do this live is that we also live stream. So we have people that are not able to vote that are watching via live stream, and so we want to make sure that people, whether they're on the webinar or are watching this video, after the fact or during a live stream, that they can also go and vote. And so we're going to keep that open for at least a couple weeks, and then share the results later in the month. But you can vote for each round. We say there's no hitting below the belt. We often do. We try.
Well, yeah, I tried punching upward to get below your belt, and you still haven't figured out how to punch that low yet. So
we do a bit of smack talk around there, but that's just because Tom can't fight clean. So that's just that.
I don't apologize for it either.
I need it. Wait, I've got my sound effects here. If you can hear it, where is it? Here it is. You'll see if you can hear it.
Yeah. Yep.
There we go.
Rim shot.
And so that was an example of the kind of smack talk that we do, trash talking. But we do a winner based on overall voting. And so and we keep a leaderboard. So we keep the score. So here is the latest. So after last month, I tell you, Tom has been dominating. And this last month was the first, or not last month, because it didn't happen because of the snowstorm last month. So 2 months ago was the first clean sweep. And so you see, Tom, I added most clean sweeps.
He who controls the slide deck gets to create their own stats to make it look really good. Okay.
I need to do a little flash of the hashtag of fake news after that one.
Well played, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So And the only reason I did that is because I know that you're very rapidly going to come and take back over the stats up above that. And so that's why I created the most votes in single event, then awarded it to myself. That was also from 2 months ago. And then the most clean sweeps.
Oh, man, time. Our next live event is going to be brutal. I can tell that.
Yeah, but from this count, I was correct. So this is our 12th recording here. Tom, are you ready?
I think so. Let's get on with it.
Do we need to go back and linger on this for a few more minutes? Or
no, I think you've lingered enough. I think we can go on to round one now.
All right, so here we go. Round one. So I'm going to kick things off and then hand that off to Tom. And one thing I should say is that, remember, it's like the tips have nothing to do with each other. So Tom could present on PowerPoint. I may then present on Microsoft Teams. The next one I may do something from Outlook. Tom may also do something from Outlook. And if it's the same, if I'm presenting on something and if my number one tip just happens to be his number one or number two that he was going to share, he can't share the same thing. So we have a couple backups in our decks, and we have to then go and be prepared with something that's new. Tom, how many backups do you have today?
That's proprietary information.
Okay. All right. Good call there. So here's my first tip. Publishing external content to Microsoft Teams is a card. So this is something that we're seeing more and more. What's powerful about Teams is that in Microsoft's messaging is that it's a hub for the workplace, for everything, the way that people go and work. Here's how I explain that to people, because I think a lot of people inherently understand, if they've not seen data around it, that when you switch context, when you're moving between platforms and tools, when you're having a conversation over in one platform and sharing content documents in another platform, you lose context when you're switching in between them. And what often happens is that there's a whole, and this is probably one of the most common, there's a whole thread discussion happening via email, which is different than the chat that's happening in Skype, which is different than the discussion and feedback being shared in a Yammer group or out on Teams. And so one of the things that Teams is so incredible about is consolidating all of that into one place. It does provide that threaded conversation, that chat, but it might be valid that there are other SharePoint sites and Yammer groups or email threads, or even, there's maybe feedback or discussions happening via Twitter. And so you want the ability to go and add tabs and add that information in, but likewise, that external content, you want to be able to add that in, create cards, and add that into that thread discussion. So what this does is it basically walks you through the ability to go in either natively through the connectors that are available in Teams, or through the generic like RSS feed to provide a way to get those RSS feeds, that external content, to actually create cards in that threaded discussion. So if Tom and I, we have a project, we're chatting together within Teams, and yet we want to be able to, in that conversation, discuss and be able to monitor what people are saying about our company's, Twitter handle, or follow a specific hashtag. And so you have the ability to go in, you add that connector. So up above, you've got the tab up above, but you can add also, connectors. There's a couple different ways to do this. Here I'm connecting it over to, Twitter. There's the connector. I go and set that up. In this example, I might tie it to like my own profile. But and then every time somebody then goes and comments on your company, so my company CollabTalk, or I might set it up to, you could have multiple connectors out there. Maybe every time somebody mentions at Buckley Planet, my Twitter profile, that it will then pull that information in. And so it will show up as a card within that threaded discussion. Tom and I can set notifications. So every time we see something come into that conversation, we can immediately jump in. Oh, I see what they're saying. They have a problem with our product launch. Who needs to be brought into this discussion so we can figure out how to best handle it, reach back out to that individual, or or the talk to our external, our PR team or communications team, of how we best handle this feedback. So that's the idea there. The tip is publishing that external content. Anything that produces an RSS feed can be fed into your Microsoft Teams conversation as a card.
One thing that is slightly connected in that is if you enable incoming webhooks in Teams, what you can do then is you can actually have programmed information that comes into your team channels. So let's say you're running PowerShell scripts or something, and you want notifications to show up really easily when a certain script runs or finishes or starts, whatever. You can set that up within your PowerShell script that basically will send this information to the incoming webhook for your channel, and it will then present that information in a card too. So it's really cool that, again, Microsoft Teams can be your one-stop shop where you spend a lot of your time, because that's where all your information is coming into.
And there's a broader story that Microsoft is trying to tell around this. This is kind of the meta comment to all of this, is that Microsoft recognizes that you're not just searching on content and data and looking for expertise, people within your organization, that you may also want to be able to find pertinent information outside of your organization. Some of it public, some of it on file shares, wherever that is. And so they're increasingly making it easier to surface information no matter where it sits, and then do things with it. So it's not just hey, I can get access to and then go over to that other site. It's not just a link, but actually pull it in so it's richer experience that you can interact with and build that into your user experience. So we're just at the beginning of where this is. This is a part of the whole Microsoft messaging of the intelligent enterprise. And so with that, Tom, do you want to take over?
I will assume you can see that now.
I can see it.
Great. So what my first round tip is being able to edit the video transcript in a Microsoft Stream video that you have out there. And when I was asked about this, some time back, they're like, well, can we edit the transcript? I'm like, no. And then I thought, well, I better look it up just to see and make sure that that's right. And lo and behold, I found out that you can actually edit the transcript, which is kind of cool. So if you call up your video and you've got your transcript panel here, you'll have this edit button, which basically starts the edit mode for the transcript. And as you go through, whoops, there we go. So as you go through, it'll put yourself in edit mode. So if you click on one of the snippets, you'll see that you've got your text. You can make your changes. And what's really cool is you've got these little icons on the side. The green one basically says, yeah, save my changes. But the black one with the little play arrow on it will actually take you to the point in the video to where that snippet was, and it will play that snippet so you can hear exactly what was said so you can actually make your changes. So in this case, I changed what we had here from I feel we need to light an intro song, which obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it changed to, I feel like we need to start with an intro song. Now, granted, and I clicked done, and great, everything's cool. I will admit that the whole automatic recognition of the words that are being said and stuff, in many cases works really, really well. However, you'll probably be really amused when you go out and search the transcript and you get to see what Microsoft thought you were saying versus what you actually said.
Which is understandable with like names and titles, and especially if you're trying to describe, you're talking about an event that's happening in Paris that has French words in there, so that you can go in there and correct that. Or like you've done here is create hashtag fake news. Something that you said. No, but I mean, Tom, why is this so important to be able to go and modify the transcript?
So I don't think it's something that you would do on a regular basis, especially if it's just a team meeting that you have out there. But if you have a major event that you've recorded your CEO or something like that, and what it thinks the CEO said and what he really said or she really said, you may need to massage that, because what it translated to could possibly be embarrassing or something, or maybe you don't want those exact words in the transcript, even though they're going to hear it when they're watching the video. This gives you that ability to do some control or damage control if needed.
Well, but I was
what's being done out there.
These videos are knowledge assets. And
yes,
so, and because it's the Teams goes in and does and Stream, it does the automatic transcription. It means that it makes the transcripts of your videos searchable within the platform. And so your videos are knowledge assets. And so you do want to be able to clarify that, so that when people going and they're searching for something, you don't need to correct every typo that's within there. But to your point, important keywords, titles, descriptions of things that people will go and search on to try and find this important information, you want to make sure that it's accurate.
Exactly. So that is my tip.
Very cool. Right, so you got the link there, and you can go out and vote now on the first 2 tips that you've seen. Or we could just jump right into round 2.
I should have just kept control of the sharing, because I get this one too.
Yes, you do.
So starting off with round 2, this is a tip that kind of really blew my mind when I found this one, because a lot of times when you're working with Windows applications and you're doing cut and paste, you'll do a cut or a copy. It goes to your clipboard, you'll do a paste, but you may have like 3 or 4 things you need to copy and paste. And in my mind, I was always thinking, well, then I've got to go copy and then paste, and then copy, then paste, because the clipboard isn't going to store multiple entities. However, I found in Office programs like Outlook, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, they actually have a clipboard that will store up to 24 entries that you can just select from. It is so cool. So when I found this out, I put together this test. So what I've got here is I went out to my 1 Minute Office, or I did a search for 1 Minute Office Magic. It gave me some content, and I just went ahead and highlighted this and did a copy. Then I went out to Word, and under Home and Clipboard, you'll see your little pop-out arrow there. It says, see all the items you've copied to the clipboard. And when I click that, it puts this clipboard panel on the side, and you'll see that it has copied all the things, or saved basically all the things that I have copied. And I put some additional ones in here just so you could see that there was more than one. But it will basically save up to 24 of these. And so now that I've got this in here in the clipboard panel, all I need to do is, click or use the drop-down arrow next to one of these snippets, and boom, there it is in my document. So now, if it's a situation where I know that I'm going to be creating multiple documents that have 3 or 4 standard boilerplate pieces in there, I can go do all my copies of those, and then for each Word document or Excel document or stuff like that, I've got those all set up in the clipboard area, and I don't have to go back and do recopies and recopies and recopies. I can just do pastes at that point. And what's really cool is that it actually stays out there between your sessions and between applications. So here you'll see my clipboard that I have that I did basically for Word. But if I open Excel, you'll see the same clipboard things out there, and I can paste my content into there. One of the things you can also tell about how many you have going is once you use this option, whenever you copy something, you see this little pop-up come up in like the lower right-hand corner that says 4 of 24, 6 of 24, 10 of 24. So you'll have an idea of how many items you've copied to your clipboard, how close you might be to running out of options if you need to come in here and possibly use the little hover drop-down arrow on specific entries to delete them to give you some more room. But basically, bottom line is you've got a multiple clipboard feature that I didn't even know existed. And this is really awesome to save you a lot of time in getting content into your new documents.
I didn't know that feature was there either. That is very cool.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I've been working in this field for how many years? And I never knew this. And the thing that got me was, it's not like this is something that just came out. It's been there for a long time.
Yep. Well, I know that we've talked about, I think in past episodes in PowerPoint and or Word, for the ability to capture like multiple images, and some of the it was shared in context of some of the AI capabilities. Mm-hmm. And go back and take a look at that, because I think that is an excellent kind of a similar tip to this one, and these are like side by side. I didn't know this half worked, so that's very cool.
This is cool.
So my second tip, if it will forward, there we go, adding a Yammer tab into Teams. And one of the reasons so there's some new announcements and things that came out the last couple months around this, and this I was thinking a lot about, and you still see a lot of blog posts around the whole which tool to use when scenario. And one of the biggest questions out there is, well, what about Yammer versus Teams? And my answer back to folks that ask that question is like, look, there are very specific use cases for both. There are things where Yammer really shines. Like I am a huge proponent of Yammer as an extranet solution. If you need to very quickly pull 10 people from 10 companies into a site and collaborate with rich features. No other solution does it as well as quickly as Yammer. Can you use Teams with external users? Yes, but it's very limited in its capability of what it can go and do, where you can have a very robust experience through these external groups. But so let's say you have that. You've got very active Yammer groups that are going on, but you're also deploying Teams and using Teams. Well, of course, you can go in and add a tab and add Yammer. So as part of that native feature, you can now add that Yammer tab. And so it's really easy. You go in and add a new tab. You can see it there. There's Yammer. So as you go in and you select that, you can then go and select based on a specific group or a discussion thread, or a topic. So the topic is interesting. So it's across multiple discussion areas. So I use as an example, I did a simple search. I'm participating in a lot of Yammer groups and conversations that are where I'm an external user, and not so much in my company of one. I don't go in and Yammer by myself to have some good use cases and screenshots to share. But I was able to go in and do a search on CollabTalk. Now there was nothing in the results for this example, but I'll show you here another sample. But when you do that, when you add the tab, what's great about that is then what happens is then you have that notification. So you have the ability then to go, and as activities happen within that, with the connector to Yammer, you'll see some of that activity within that thread discussion. And there's a little bit better in the blog post that announces this feature. There's a better example of this. And why this goes back to my round one share of making Teams a hub for collaboration. Here's a great example where we're working in teams. This is where the project team, where Tom and I come together to collaborate around our project, but we find ourselves constantly going to, let's say, 3 different Yammer groups, 3 different conversations that are happening with internal and external people out on Yammer. We want to bring that in closer to our hub so we can add 3 tabs for those 3 Yammer groups and conversations so that we can go to one place. All I have to do is log then into Teams, and I go into that team where Tom and I are working on this project together, and I can then go click on the tab for each of those conversations and get notifications, see the conversation that's happening. Tom and I can discuss the Yammer threads before we respond. So we can have our internal, what's our official response going to be to this community discussion happening over in this group, and then go over and respond. And by responding in the tab, it's happening in real time, over in Yammer, or we could click on that Yammer group and go over into the Yammer experience. So it's very robust. It's not just it's a frame. It is an organic integration of Yammer into Teams. And so it's just, again, the beginning of the integrations that you can do to bring multiple solutions together underneath one hub.
Very cool. I am not a Yammer user. We were going to roll it out recently, but then with our SharePoint migration stuff going on, we've kind of put that on the back burner for right now. So
one thing at a time. Yeah, I actually thought of you and your organization. I mean, I can see this starts to make it the case as you guys get your SharePoint stuff in order with the migration, start using Teams and a lot of this other capability. I think that there are some great use cases for Yammer. You guys may find that, in fact, you and I may even go and do some of this activity, the things that we're sharing in a Yammer group. That might be something you and I do, and let people that are regulars participate, where we can collaborate around some of these ideas.
Yeah, we had a group that wants to do a proof of concept on it, but again, just with as much as we've got going on and the resources we have, it's just like, yeah, not right now.
Yeah, you always need to pick your battles, and it's a low priority now, but I think it could add a lot of value. And we're going to jump right into round 3. There we go. This happy animation. So the next share here is making connections to teams two-way. I'm all about the team.
I'm seeing a theme here for you.
This is actually a SharePoint tip, though.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll wait.
Because here, this is a SharePoint view, but this is a great. Here's one. So Emma over at Cobweb, which is a great blog title, by the way. Cobweb. It's Cobweb Spider-esque. It also could be a blog about all corn products.
This is true.
Anyway, but she shared this great tip on it's something that I've talked to people about who talk about, say, well, again, about where do people send people, and there's no unified navigation across these different places where we're sending people. If Teams is our hub, yet we are doing a ton of things. Our intranet is in SharePoint. We have a lot of legacy SharePoint sites as well, team sites in place. We're utilizing the new SharePoint capabilities, the new templates, and sharing a lot of information, a lot of news there. Maybe you're also using Yammer, could be using other third-party solutions. Well, one of the things that's just a really simple way of doing that is over within those core team sites and communication sites is to make sure that over on the left side that you have these links that are set up to the relevant locations. So if you do have team sites in SharePoint that are directly related to Microsoft Teams, that's not confusing at all.
Not at all.
Teams related, team sites related teams in Teams.
We've started calling them team workspaces.
Yeah, that is a better name. So the team workspaces. I like that, Tom. I would call them like your team's posse.
There you go.
That doesn't really fit. But the idea here is basically this is actually it's a key information architecture principle, which is don't forget about the navigation. So make sure that you are going and looking at the way people are working and that there are links to SharePoint and Yammer and other third-party tools that you might be using within Teams. You can do that through tabs. Within the SharePoint experience, have links back into the Teams. And what's nice about this, as she points out in the article, is that by providing a link back to that team or that channel, when you click on that, takes you directly to that within Teams. Obviously, if you don't have Teams open, it has to do the authentication. As with everything in Office 365, it's all tied to your permissions. You will not see teams or channels or team sites or Yammer groups or OneDrive or OneNote instances that you don't have permissions to see. So people can provide a link. You click on it and it says you do not have permission here, or it will go through authenticate, and then once it's authenticated, it will open up. So if you have Teams open on your desktop, you click on this within SharePoint, that link directly into it, it'll jump right over into Teams in your desktop or the browser experience, open right into that location.
Very nice. I like that.
All right, Tom, over to you. Oh, yeah, I have to stop sharing. All right, here we go.
So the third round one that I have, which was one of those ones where I thought, wow, that wouldn't have been something I thought would have happened. And that is how to concatenate Excel data with fill justify. So in this particular tip,
I don't need to justify my fill. I can fill when I want.
No judging. No judging. No judging whatsoever, but we will justify it. So in this particular case, this is a situation where you've got like 11 cells of data that really need to be put together into a single cell. This is probably a contrived example here, but you get the idea. I would like to have this is the first day of the rest of your life all appear in cell A1. Normally you'd have to do copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste, and it would fill up your clipboard, as in tip number 2. But in this particular case,
only 24 of the words.
Only 24 of the words, though. In this case, what you can do is use the fill justify feature, which isn't how I would think this would work, but it works really well. So in this case, I go ahead and highlight the 11 cells that I want to concatenate. Then what I do is in the column that I want to concatenate them into, I go ahead and stretch out the cell width, because if I don't stretch it out enough, if I'd only done like, an inch or so, it would still concatenate, but when it got to the end of the space for that particular line, it would then start in the second cell and the third cell. So you get some concatenation, but it wouldn't be all in one cell. It would be in multiple cells at that point. So just kind of pull it out all the way so you can get all the information there.
Hey,
And
Tom,
then,
is that true even if you have like the wrap text set?
I think so, but I don't know that right offhand.
Because that's kind of an odd limitation.
It is an odd limitation, and where I was looking at this, and they didn't make that differentiation either. They're just like, it needs to be that wide for it to get the information out there. So
easy, quick test though. Set the set that for the column that formatting the wrap text.
Yeah, and just see if it actually does pull that off.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. So then once you get that out there, you've got all your cells highlighted that you want to concatenate. You go out to Home, Fill, and Justify. Usually Justify, is like, make sure it's even on the left and the right-hand side. But in this case, what it does is nothing short of magic. It just takes all of those individual entries and sticks them in that first cell. And when I shared this with our internal staff, the response on this was like, oh my God, this changes everything. And in my mind, I was like, this is cool, but it's probably kind of a throwaway tip. Those are the tips that invariably get the biggest response internally when I post these. So this is nice if you ever need to go out and get some of your data concatenated together. You can use this, which is a lot faster than having to figure out how to move cells next to each other and copy and paste and all that kind of stuff. So
these are the kinds of things where most of us may say, well, look, I never really need this. There's once in a while, like now that I know that, because I've run into that where I've done the cut and paste. And but this could be a huge productivity savings for somebody that runs into this all the time.
Yeah, if you live in Excel, this is going to be huge.
Yep.
So
very cool.
Stop sharing, and
it's still you. Round 4.
Gosh, yes, it is. I'm just not on top of things today.
Not that you people should penalize Tom for that, not being on top of things, but I'm just saying.
Ouch. Ouch.
Right. Round 4.
Okay. Here I come. Big comeback here. So I'm going to go with Microsoft Teams tip on this one.
Wow. After giving me a hard time, you're going to do that.
Yeah, I am. So, oh God, I love our trash talking. This is so much fun. So on this one,
it just smacks of pandering, Tom. That's all I'm saying. I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, you have no idea how I'm going to sell this recording to my internal staff. Wow, Tom's got 453 votes on this particular one. He takes over that category now. So in this one, what I ended up exploring here was in Microsoft Teams, you're having a chat in your channel, and you can just type in words and hit enter, and boom, you get something like this. Let's meet to go over tomorrow's presentation. However, if you have a lot of traffic in that channel, or there's multiple channels you're trying to follow, you can almost just kind of overlook that one, or it doesn't really catch your attention, or you glance over it and you're off to something else and you don't even think about it. So what would happen if you did some formatting here to make it a little bit more visually appealing and arresting, to have them stop and actually see what's going on? So instead of just typing in the words like before and hitting enter or hitting the send icon, this time I said, let's meet to go over tomorrow's presentations, and I clicked the A icon, which is the formatting icon, which gives you a whole set of options now that you can do in your posts. So you can add a subject to your entry out there. You can change the style of the font, bold, italicize. You can do bulleted or numbered lists. You can add a hyperlink. You can quote sections. If you're so inclined, you can do HTML code in there, which will format. You can flag the post as being important so it kind of stands out visually. So after I did all those, this is what I ended up with. So I had flagged this as important. I went ahead and gave it a title, used bulleted lists. I went ahead and also added a link to Google here. And then when I clicked send, what I end up with is an entry that looks like this. So I went from let's meet to go over tomorrow's presentation to, yeah, let's still meet, but here's your subject line. It's important. It's got red on it, so you'll see it. I've given you a bit of an agenda, and I gave you a link to something that might be pertinent to this particular meeting. So all of a sudden, I've gone from a forgettable conversation entry in Teams to something that stands out, is going to get attention, and as such, will probably give you better information and better participation overall.
Yeah, I like this. It's like word light.
That,
that capability, but it's I mean, we're always vying for attention on things, but it's not even that. It's that having that being more organized, at being able to have kind of a richer entry when you have much more important information to share. Very cool. So the second half of round 4 here. So mine is one of those like your Excel, your comment in the last one, where it may be a small number of people that are interested, but some really cool things. So this is the editing documents with a digital pen. And I don't know if we've talked about just about everything within the ink capabilities, but this is for me one of the coolest. And I was excited yesterday. I found out for my Surface Pro, the Surface Pro 3, I found the pen. Like a lot of them, those things are like $100.
Oh yeah, they're not cheap. You lose one of those and it hurts.
Yeah. So I found it and I was all excited. I wanted to try and show it live, and I wasn't set up and prepared for that. But today, if for those that do a lot of editing, being able to go into your touch device like Surface, if you've got a monitor on your desk that is touch and can do this as well. But to go in and do kind of the standard corrections, capture information, move it around, highlight, style. I mean, it's amazing. I'm still old school in that when I'm editing articles that I'm writing or white papers, or I've just signed on to review a book. I'm not going to do it for the book, which is lengthier, but I print things out. I go old school and I color code. I've got highlighters and red pen things, just because I read better that way. And I can, using the pen, I usually think faster than I can type and move the mouse around that as I'm reading through. And so now being able to have those same activities, those interactions using a pen device with the touch screen, it is pretty incredible. And it recognizes a lot of just the standard, editing thing.
Symbols.
So that's it. That's the tip. There is edit documents using that digital pen. I'm just excited to play with that more. I told my daughter's finishing up in grad school, and she loves her Surface Pro and takes all of her notes in OneNote with the pen and has it then, change to text and use that. And I told her about this. And she's like, this is fantastic. You need to share with her team. So
yeah, that is cool. I mean, for my work stuff, I do not have anything that's touch enabled, so something like this wouldn't come into play, but my personal Surface books that I've got would definitely come into play for this. And
something to go play with.
Yeah, I like that.
Round 5, final round, going into the final thing. So here is something that is, I wanted to go and do because it was an annoying thing, and I went and found one of these different tools. I wanted to automate something. I have an iPhone 10. I live and breathe inside of OneNote. I want to make it so that as I take any screenshots, it automatically captures that, dumps it over into OneNote, so I can then start using it on my desktop. That was what I wanted to go and do. It's very simple. If you find that you're doing a lot of things on mobile, you're snapping pictures that you want to be able to go and use within whatever you're putting together, documentation, if you're out on your intranet or building a website and want to be able to incorporate some of those images, very quick and simple to go and use tools like If This Then That, or Zapier, or any of these third-party integrations. These are free integrations that you can go and just set up. It's as simple as creating a profile like in ifttt.com, and go and set up a profile if you don't already have one. Do a search for your iPhone and OneNote. You'll see all the various applets that are available. You can find this recipe and turn it on, and then it's just very quickly to go in. It'll authenticate you within the application against your desktop, and essentially link your phone to OneNote. And every time you're going and taking those screenshots or pictures, it'll automatically add a copy of those images to OneNote. So next time you're at your desktop, there's all the images that you captured.
It pains me to say this, Christian, but I would probably vote for this tip.
Here, Tom, vote for Christian. Yes. Well,
I would. Doesn't mean the rest of you have to. You might want to vote for my tip instead. But
this is one of those examples of I'm just trying to reduce the number of clicks or things that I think about and automate things which I don't have to think about this. It just sends it to where I know that I will go and pull from and reuse those things.
Yeah, and this kind of helps too, because recently I upgraded my Surface Book to the next iteration. And so on my old one, a lot of times when I'd be sitting in a session or something, I would be positioned in front of the screen to where I could just, when I'm in OneNote, do take picture, take picture, take picture. And as I'm taking notes in the session, I'm getting the screen images that are being projected and stuff like that.
Right.
When I was in it was the SharePoint Saturday Twin Cities this month, I was sitting there with my new Surface Book, and it's like, okay, I'm in OneNote, time to take a picture. And all of a sudden I realized that there is no back-facing camera on my new Surface Book 2, or whatever the number is. I'm like, well, that sucks. And so I had to take my phone and take images, but then it's like, okay, now I got to figure out how to get that from over there. This is something that I can play around with now. And
that's a use case I hadn't considered. How to decrease embarrassing live presentation photography faux pas.
Ouch again. Okay, I'll take that one. Gosh, I'm getting pummeled today.
Good times. Good times.
That's fine. Next month is Vegas, and
that's right. Well, over to you, Tom.
Okay. Last
tip. Make it big, Tom. Come on.
Make it big. I'm going to go with Teams again. It seemed to work for you.
Yes.
So this is something that's really minor, but if you're working on a small screen, it can be a real lifesaver in terms of working with teams to get a little bit more real estate. And I saw Sandra, my coworker, do this, and I thought, whoa, I did not know that was there. I didn't even notice it. So in this example here, I'm in a planner that's in Teams for this particular team workspace that I've got. And of course, in Planner, we've got a lot of buckets for sprints because we do an agile type thing. And while I've got my large screen, it's no big deal. I've got real estate, doesn't matter. But if I were just on my laptop, I would see maybe 2 of these buckets, and that would be about it. And it's like, I really don't need to see all of the stuff over on the left-hand side for all the teams that I've got. I would really rather have more real estate to see the content of the planner or the wiki or whatever. And what you can do is, if you're in that particular tab in this channel, there is this icon over on the right-hand side which has the 2 outward-facing arrows, which is the Expand tab. And when you click that, you'll see that that whole white space area here on the left side disappeared. Now I can get that back very simply by clicking the icons with the 2 inward-facing arrows. But if I'm working in Planner and I'm doing a lot of work within there, or if I'm doing a lot of work with one of my other tabs and I really don't need to see all the teams I've got out there right now, I can go ahead and use that expand screen to get more real estate. And again, if you're on a small laptop, you're really going to want to get as much real estate that's usable for your actual function you're trying to perform, instead of a lot of informational type stuff that just may not be applicable to what you're doing right now. So I thought that was really a cool way to, get that usable space, that usable real estate on a width basis in Teams, where otherwise you may find yourself doing a whole lot of left and right scrolling, which is never pleasant. So,
yeah, this is something that I actually use a lot because when I have it, so I've got one of those giant extra wide monitors, my primary work monitor, and so I can have when you're editing a Word doc or something, and you can see in high fidelity like 2 pages. And you lose that real estate. You can only do the 1 page, can't see like the next one. And so I like doing that to expand the view so I can get more on my screen. But it's especially useful. It gets very cramped if you're on a Teams meeting. And so you've got the video running, and that then takes up more real estate of the conversations or whatever the workspace that you're in, the tab that you have open. And so it also gives you more space to go and play with each of those things. So
because usually when you're looking at a video, or if you're in a Teams meeting, that video, if you click over to something other than the video, it's showing in this white space area here on the left
corner
at the very top. Yeah. And again, you may just want to be listening. You don't want to take up that real estate. You want to be doing some other work and multitask. Yeah, go ahead and use that expansion. It'll go ahead and move it to the left. You're not going to see the video anymore, but you're still going to be able to hear stuff. So that's really good.
Or if somebody is then sharing their desktop and a bunch of spreadsheets, you can expand that very quickly as well to fill up so you can see it a little more closely.
Yep.
But just to wrap up, and maybe we'll see some changes to the stats on the right side. I don't know. Maybe.
Vote for me. Vote for me.
Yeah. So, thanks everybody for participating, for checking it out. Then we're together again in May. We're at the SharePoint conference in Las Vegas, and we're doing something a little bit different where we're sharing kind of the best of. There may be a few new ones in that mix as well.
Yeah. The one that we're doing in Vegas is 20 tips that you should be using but probably aren't.
Right.
So yeah, there could be some new ones. We'll definitely dip into our past, and it's not going to be this adversarial type thing. So we're going to try to do 20 and 75 minutes. So we'll be very concise.
Is it 75 or is it 60 minutes? I think it's 60 minutes, Tom.
Then we're going to be really, really concise. Hint, hint.
I know. That's not a lot of time.
But yeah, it's going to be very rapid fire. We're going to be collaborating on this one instead of competing against each other. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I have some ideas there, Tom, I need to talk to you about.
Okay.
But this is our next bout. So our next, this format will be in June. So you can go and register now. And June 20th, right now, both of us wide open, just to give people a heads up that we could adjust it by a couple days. Depending on what happens for both of us for work. But right now, the plan of record, June 20th. I think the June 25th was the other date. But
yes, it was.
We're locking and loading this one, and that's the summer scuffle, because there aren't any fun words that are synonyms to battle that start with the letter J. For June.
Yeah, we have really been working the thesauruses very, very hard.
Although we could have done like June Jungle or something, but we've got July. There's always July, Tom.
Yeah, there's always July. We'll always have July.
We will. But you go register now. Of course, that's over to the Zoom, the webinar. So go register at capital O365 Scuffle. And
sounds great.
With that, thank you again. Thanks, Tom.
Hey,
always.
My pleasure. And next one that we do like this, I will try really hard not to have a power outage, and you will try really hard to put it on your calendar.
To show up. I was sitting at my desk, Tom.
Yeah, you were. It's just You weren't where you needed to be
No,
when you were sitting at your desk.
But you know what? Well, there's always what's consistent is YouTube, these recordings. So please, if you enjoy this and some of the other content that's out there, please subscribe on YouTube and click the bell as well to get those notifications. And then, of course, our blogs, buckleyplanet.com and 1minuteofficemagic.com. With that, thanks a lot, Tom.
Thanks a lot. A lot of fun. And we will catch you in Vegas, or we'll catch you virtually online in June. Bye, everyone.